Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have two stories for you from the JustNoHOA subreddit. Make sure to follow us on your podcasting platform of choice, and if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video, and let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Lanky Decision 5060, The Great Shed Debacle. When I moved into my cozy cabin on the edge of town, all I wanted was peace, quiet, and a space for my woodworking hobby. I'd found the perfect place, a little patch of heaven surrounded by trees, with a driveway that twisted away from the main road like a secret path. What I didn't know was that this paradise came with a catch. My property technically fell within the jurisdiction of the Maple Acres HOA. At first, it seemed harmless. The welcome letter in my mailbox was polite, if a little formal, but I should have known something was up when they listed approved shades of beige for exterior paint colors. I filed the letter away, figuring I'd never hear from them again. Oh, how wrong I was. The trouble started 3 weeks after I moved in when I built my dream shed. I'd saved for years to have the perfect workspace, and I went all out. Cedar siding, custom windows, and a shiny green roof. The day it was finished, I stood back to admire it, and that's when she appeared, Karen. She pulled up in her spotless white SUV, wearing sunglasses so big they made her look like a bug. Karen was the HOA president, and she wasted no time introducing herself as the self-proclaimed sheriff of Maple Acres. She stepped out with a clipboard and what I can only describe as a plastic smile glued to her face. "This won't do," she said, pointing her pen at my shed. "Excuse me?" I replied. She launched into a lecture about how my shed violated the HOA's aesthetic guidelines. Apparently, sheds had to be neutral colored and not visible from the road. When I explained that the shed was on my private property and well hidden behind a line of trees, she huffed, adjusted her oversized glasses, and said, "Rules are rules." From then on, I was public enemy number one. First, they hit me with fines. $50 for unapproved construction, $75 for disrupting the visual harmony of the neighborhood, $100 for failure to submit architectural plans for approval. I ignored them all. Then came the warnings. Letters stamped with bold red final notice banners threatening legal action if I didn't dismantle my beloved shed. One morning, I walked outside to find Karen and two other board members measuring my shed. They had a level, a tape measure, and a clipboard. I stood there, coffee in hand, watching them act like they were surveying the pyramids. "What are you doing on my property?" I asked. Karen didn't even look up. "We're documenting your violations." I smiled sweetly. "Cool, I'll be documenting your trespassing when the cops get here." That got their attention. They scurried back to their SUV, muttering about how I was hostile. Final straw. Things escalated when I got a letter claiming I owed the HOA $10,000 in back dues and fines. $10,000. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off my porch swing. They had no authority to charge me anything close to that amount, but Karen was clearly trying to bully me into submission. What they didn't know was that I'd been keeping receipts, literal and figurative. I had photos, videos, and timestamps of every time they stepped onto my property without permission. I even had footage of Karen dumping a bag of leaves onto my driveway, presumably to frame me for yard debris violations. It was time to fight back. Victory is sweet. I hired a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes. When Karen and her cronies realized I wasn't backing down, they tried to settle. I refused. The matter went to small claims court, where I presented my mountain of evidence. The judge took one look at the case and ruled in my favor. The HOA was ordered to drop all fines, pay my legal fees, and issue a formal apology. Karen's face turned the color of an overripe tomato. The best part? The judge declared that the HOA had overstepped its bounds and voided their claim over my property entirely. I was free. The aftermath. Word spread quickly. Other neighbors who'd been quietly suffering under Karen's reign started speaking up. Turns out she'd been issuing bogus fines for years, pocketing the money for herself. The HOA held an emergency meeting where Karen was unanimously voted out. She left town not long after, her pristine SUV loaded with boxes. With Karen gone, the HOA collapsed. No one wanted to take her place, and honestly, no one missed it. The neighborhood became more relaxed. People painted their houses whatever colors they wanted. Someone even threw a block party, and yes, I brought a plate of cookies and a six-pack to share. As for my shed, it still stands proudly, a symbol of freedom, and a reminder to never let anyone tell you what shade of beige your life should be. Is anybody else feeling OP's main character energy right here? This is the kind of story that gives hope to everyone who is stuck dealing with an overreaching HOA. Although it does sound like it might be slightly embellished, because unless OP's property wasn't supposed to be in the HOA in the first place, the chances of it being removed from the HOA, even by a judge, are slim to none. Regardless of which way you lean on that one though, I do appreciate the story, and I also appreciate that OP's shed is now a monument to their freedom. And they might need to put a little sign on the front of it that says, "Here stands the shed that defeated Karen." This story comes to us from Classic Mite 2343, Neighbor Weaponizing the HOA. My wife and I bought a home in a 55+ community in Rio Vista, California. And while waiting for our backyard to be installed, we hung a couple small bird feeders off a tree branch in our front yard. A few weeks later, we get a violation notice telling us that doing so constituted making an alteration to our property, and we're told to remove them immediately. We did in an effort to demonstrate goodwill and to make a good faith effort to be good community members. I read the CC&Rs and learned that there was no mention of bird feeders. I also talked to an attorney who told me bird feeders and birdhouses are commonly held to be decorations, and that since there was no alteration to the building itself, the notice was sent in error. But again, we want to be good neighbors, so we never hung them in our front yard again. But having read the CC&Rs, I knew that as long as we hung them in our backyard without permanently affixing them to the house or the fence, we were in compliance. So I dug out all of our shepherd's crooks and found all the feeders, 7 I think, and hung them in the backyard below the fence line. A couple weeks later, our next door neighbors ring my doorbell and ask to talk. They vehemently, no small talk, 0 to 60 in a heartbeat, plead their case for us taking down our feeders. The woman tells me no one needs that many feeders, and when I ask her how she knows how many feeders I have, she says she looks over the 6-foot privacy fence. I ask them to speak respectfully, and they go through several arguments, but every time I refute their argument, they get more and more upset. Finally, they make a very disparaging remark about my wife, and I end the discussion by telling them to get off our property. I erected a 20-foot flagpole to hang the American flag. On Father's Day, I happen to see the male neighbor in question, and I tell him Happy Father's Day. His reply is, with the curse words redacted, that I will have to take down my flagpole. I ask why, since the rules permit flagpoles, and he tells me that the flapping of the flag is keeping he and his wife awake at night. In fairness, we do live in a windy part of the Delta. I go inside, think about it, and immediately take it down. I walk over, knock on his door, and tell him that I had listened to him and had taken it down immediately because we don't want anyone to lose sleep. His reply is, the next thing you need to do is paint my house because of all the bird crap all over it. I turn and leave. Months go by with the birds enjoying the food, us enjoying the birds, and our planters enjoying the cross-pollination. Then, earlier this summer, the female neighbor shouts at us over the fence that she is getting the HOA on us to take down them feeders. We laugh and basically ignore her. Yesterday, I got a notice from our HOA that I have violated the courtesy clause in the CC&Rs by doing something that may be or may become a nuisance, and tell us to reduce or take down our feeders. I speak with an attorney, and she tells me not to do anything without having a hearing at which she will attend. She says we have the right to quiet enjoyment of our property without interference or harassment. She goes on to say that someone cannot simply claim a nuisance, it must be demonstrable or proven. The complaint states that neighbors have filed numerous complaints, so I go ask the surrounding neighbors, except the aforementioned ones, and not only does every one of them categorically deny having filed a complaint, all of them tell me they love watching and listening to the birds. So it is obvious that our next door neighbors are the ones filing all of the complaints, and they have talked us down to the rest of the neighbors on our street. So I filed a harassment complaint against them. In the meantime, is there any basis to the nuisance angle they are using? They threatened to call the state authorities, and I checked with the state. California does ban feeding large wildlife, but birdseed is sold everywhere, and they do not care about feeding birds. They threatened to call the police, and again I checked, and there is no city ordinance governing bird feeders. They cited research showing that bird feeders had caused a drop in wild bird populations. Correlation is not causation. Wild bird populations have dropped concurrent with the popularity of bird feeding, but not in the bird species present at the feeders, which is not factual. I would appreciate any ideas, techniques, or legal remedies to get this to stop. I don't ask for much, but I do think I should be able to enjoy watching my little feathered friends help. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called OKWillow4232. It says, "Don't sue the HOA, sue them personally." I remember seeing a comment about how if the HOA gets sued, a settlement, if there is one, comes out of the pockets of all the homeowners in the association, including yourself. Another commenter down below called Outworlder said, "Those neighbors seem to be getting preferential treatment from at least one person in the HOA. I wonder what sort of things they are in violation of that were never addressed." OP, I agree with this commenter. Take a look at their property from your side and see if there's anything over there that's going against the CC&Rs for your HOA. Then, make sure every little one of them gets reported, no matter how small it is. Also, you might want to talk to a lawyer that specializes in HOA situations, and you live in SoCal, so there should be quite a few of them there because I'm assuming HOAs are everywhere in that area. Until you get a legal resolution though, you should add one new bird feeder to your collection every time your neighbors say something. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.